The millionaire finds out that a black woman paid for his groceries not knowing he was her son. The grocery store buzzed with life, but it was the chaos of the moment that stole Isabel's breath. She was just there to grab a loaf of bread and some milk for Tommy. The air was thick with anticipation, where every squeak of a wheel and rustle of bags felt charged with electricity. In the corner of her eye, she saw an elderly man struggling at the checkout. Mr. Johnson, a familiar face, always so polite and warm. The cashier scanned his items, but panic etched on his face increased with each passing second. Isabel's heart raced. She knew too well the weight of struggling to make ends meet. "I can help," she blurted, that reckless instinct kicking in. With trembling hands, she pulled cash from her worn purse, the one that often felt more like a weight than a tool. And just like that, she paid for Mr. Johnson's groceries, a small act that felt monumental at the time. He blinked. But the storm was only beginning. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me!" he exclaimed, his voice thick with disbelief. She shrugged, feeling an inexplicable bond in that brief moment. Then it all spiraled in dizzying speed. Somehow, Rodrigo Miller, Mr. Johnson's son, stood behind her, a striking man with sharp features and eyes like storm clouds. Isabel felt the scrutiny of his gaze. He looked like someone who had criticized the world and came out richer for it. Knowing what poor decisions wrought festered within her. But there was something in that look, an understanding that cutting through status and fortune, hurt was universal. "I didn't know what to expect," he said slowly, testing the waters of trust. "But it seems you've done more than just a good deed today." Isabel's breath hitched. Could this strange encounter lead somewhere? Days rolled on, and instinct led her to accept the job as a housekeeper in the expansive Miller home. The boundaries of their worlds colliding. She tried to keep her head down, scrubbing floors while a sense of belonging brushed against her skin. Each time Rodrigo caught her eye, a small spark ignited between them, twisting amidst the chaos of insecurities, dreams, and the joy Tommy brought into her life. But shadows danced in the corners of their growing affection. On the night Rodrigo proposed, tension hummed thickly in the air. She felt the pull of something hidden, an ominous thread, linking her to Rodrigo like an invisible chain. Just as she said yes, a notification dinged on her phone. An unexpected message, cryptic and unsettling. Isabel's heart plummeted. The words echoed with weight. "Be careful. Not everything is as it seems. You both share more than you know." The world around her seemed to... What could this mean? Was this connection she's cherished about to tear apart? And like that, in the span of a heartbeat, Isabel found herself standing at the edge of a gaping chasm, love tangled in secrets that could shatter everything she held dear. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without prior notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Isabel's heart raced as the notification buzzed in her hand. The moment that had felt so perfect, dread washed over her. What did this all mean? Was the universe about to pull the rug out from under her at the most critical moment of her life? She glanced at Rodrigo. The warmth of his expression now seemed distant. He frowned, sensing her turmoil. "Isabel, what's wrong?" He stepped closer, his presence both reassuring and daunting at the same time. Before she could voice the 1,000 fears flooding her mind, the store was suddenly rocked by panic. A loud crash echoed, cutting through the warmth of their conversation. A woman screamed, shattering the moment. Isabel's breath caught. She turned toward the commotion, eyes wide with shock. A shopping cart had toppled over, sending groceries flying through the air. But it wasn't just an accident. In the ensuing chaos, a man rushed towards them, panic etched across his face. "Call the police! There's been a theft!" he shouted. The words sent a ripple of unease through the crowd, and Isabella's pulse quickened. "I need to check on Tommy!" she managed to say, pulling away from Rodrigo's grasp, but he followed close behind. The world spun, her mind racing. What did he mean by theft? Was Tommy safe? They rushed outside, and that's when it happened. Isabel's heart stopped. There stood Tommy, not far from the door, but he wasn't alone. A familiar face loomed over him. It was Isabel's estranged brother, Marcus. The weight of unspoken history crashed down upon Isabel, smothering her like a heavy blanket. "Isabel!" Marcus shouted, joy and anger breaching the surface of his voice. "I found your boy, but you need to listen to me now." Rodrigo's brow wrinkled, confusion mingling with concern. "Who is he?" he asked, uncertainty coating his tone. Isabel stood frozen, grappling with the weight of all the years lost, wounds reopened. Ignoring Rodrigo, Isabel stepped closer to Marcus. "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be near him." "Listen," Marcus implored. "This isn't just about him. It's about you! There's something you need to know. Something you don't know about Mom." Rodrigo's eyes flicked back and forth, tension radiating off him as murmurs floated through the crowd. "Isabel, who is this guy?" His voice was low, protective, but Isabel barely heard him. "Just tell me, what about Mom?" she demanded, each word a step deeper into the abyss. "Your mother!" He hesitated, breathing heavily, like he had sprinted miles. "She's not who you think she is. I found something. Something that changes everything." In that instant, a wave of uncertainty crashed over Isabel. Her jaw tightened, words failing her as the weight of Marcus's claim hung in the air. Something deep within her shifted. Could it be true? "Don't listen to him," Rodrigo cut in, stepping forward. But Isabel could barely focus on him. Suddenly, a siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. The clamor of bystanders erupted as whispers of scandal spread like wildfire. Faces turned, glances exchanged. Everything seemed amplified, urgent, and chaotic. Marcus leaned closer, eyes frantically searching hers. "If you don't come with me right now, Isabel, it could destroy you both. This is all connected." His voice trembled, carrying the weight of grave urgency. Reality felt like it was slipping through Isabel's fingers. What secrets had her mother hidden? What truth awaited her, threatening to unravel every bond she cherished? The sirens drew nearer, threatening to trap them all in a web of scandal and deception. And just like that, Isabel stood at a crossroads, torn between what she knew and what could tear her entire world apart. Isabel's world began to blur, the noise flooding in like a tidal wave of chaos. The sirens grew louder, and every moment felt stretched, like the air was thick with unspoken truths. She focused on Marcus, his eyes wide with urgency, yet filled with something else, fear. It settled in her chest like lead. "Isabel," he pressed, desperation lacing his voice. "You don't know the truth about Mom, but you have to trust me. There's a connection I can't explain here, but it could change everything." Rodrigo's grip tightened around her arm. He scanned the crowd, protective and puzzled. "Isabel, who is this? You don't need to listen to him." "What if I do?" Isabel shot back, her heart racing. "He's my brother." The crowd buzzed with confusion, whispers like darts flitting around them. It felt like the world was closing in. The atmosphere shifted, tangling their lives in a web of secrets and shadows. "Marcus, what do you mean?" Her voice shook. "What are you trying to say about Mom?" Before Marcus could respond, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble that curled Isabel's stomach into knots. Suddenly, a front door of the store swung open, flying off its hinges, creating a jarring crash. A group of masked thieves rushed in, wild and chaotic, yelling and waving their weapons. "Everyone down! Now!" One of them screamed, brandishing a gun. Panic exploded. The crowd gasped, instinct kicking in. People screamed and scrambled to hide. Isabel's heart raced. Time froze. She yanked Rodrigo closer, the shock painting his face. "Stay close," she whispered, nearly choking on fear. "We need to get Tommy." "Where is he?" Rodrigo shouted, scanning the room desperately. They bolted deeper into the store, adrenaline blazing in their veins. "Tommy!" Isabel cried, frantically searching through the chaos. Her heart pounded in her ears. "Where are you?" Another loud bang rang out, echoing off the walls like thunder. Her breath quickened, the world spinning. Every second felt like an eternity. Marcus was beside her, eyes darting around. His face was pale, but determination flickered in his gaze. "We have to find him, Isabel." Without thinking, they stormed toward the back, confusion swirling in every corner. The sirens wailed louder outside, growing frantic. The masked thieves shouted orders, impatience boiling over as terrified patrons hid behind aisles, creating a fortress of fear. Then, amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. One of the masked thieves stumbled, almost falling into an end cap. The mask slipped slightly, exposing a familiar face, one Isabel recognized all too well. It was Marcus's best friend from childhood, Danny. "Danny?" she gasped, every breath catching in her throat. The recognition was a hot, spinning betrayal. "What are you doing?" Marcus shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. Daniel's eyes darted, recognizing Isabel. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I got caught up in something I can't control." Panic etched deeper lines across his face. The world around them erupted again. A disparate gasp tore through the crowd as another shot fired, this time aimed at their feet. "Get them down!" the robber yelled, and in that instant, Isabel realized the truth buried under layers of her life. All the intertwined fates, her mother's secrets, her brother's warnings, the warmth of Rodrigo's love, the theft, the connection they all shared. It was one life-altering tapestry. Isabel turned to Marcus, her heart pounding in her ears. "What does this mean?" she breathed, the weight crashing down. "I don't know," he yelled back, "but if Danny is here, then we're all in danger. Everything is connected, Isabel. Everything." A bright flash of memory hit her then, one she had buried deep. A family secret her mother had guarded fiercely, now threatening to surface in the most unimaginable way. The urgency hung thick and electric. Blurred lines between trust and betrayal dancing in the air. Could she believe anyone at this point? Would they all come out of this alive? Or was everything she held dear about to unravel in a flash of violence and unveiling truths? And just as the reality began to dawn, the world exploded in chaos around her. The world exploded into chaos, and Isabel's heart thundered. She clenched her fists, breathless in the swirl of panic. She glanced at Marcus, who was wide-eyed, still standing beside her. "What does this mean?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. Every second stretching out painfully. But all thoughts of family secrets faded when the masked thief turned towards them. His gun raised high. "Everyone down!" he shouted again, the urgency in his voice causing bodies to scatter. Isabel felt the heat of panic tickle at her skin, but she couldn't take her eyes off the gun. It felt too surreal. Then chaos erupted. Another gunshot rang out, and a scream sliced through the air, filling the space with pure terror. The sharp crack echoed, ricocheting against the walls, and Isabel's stomach dropped. She pulled Rodrigo close, instinct clawing at her throat. "Tommy!" she screamed again, heart racing wildly. Then she saw him, her boy, huddled behind a shelf, eyes wide, searching. Relief flooded over her, but it was quickly swallowed by fear when another thief rushed past him. "Get the money, now!" he yelled, shoving people down like they were nothing. "Isabel, we need to move!" Rodrigo shouted. She pulled away, running toward her son. But as she took a step, Marcus grabbed her arm tight. "Wait! You can't just rush out! Tommy!" She pushed through the crowd, ignoring Marcus's plea. But before she could reach him, the air shifted. With a thunderous crash, one of the shelves toppled, sending boxes tumbling down. It was like time slowed, the world narrowing to a point of panic. Isabel's heart raced, sending shockwaves through her body. Just as she reached out to grab Tommy, another sound echoed. A voice, clear and sharp, broke through the noise. "Enough!" All heads turned towards the entrance, where a tall figure stepped inside. It was a woman, commanding and fierce, her presence capturing every gaze. Isabel squinted, her heart leaping. "Annie?" she whispered, recognizing her long-lost mother's best friend. But the shock paralyzed her. Annie was supposed to be gone from their lives, hiding from secrets. What was she doing here? "Get back!" Annie shouted at the thieves, her voice unwavering, piercing through the clamor. One of the men turned, confusion flashing across his face. "Who the hell are you?" Annie didn't hesitate. She moved like lightning, lunging forward and throwing a handful of something into the air. Smoke erupted. It filled the room, billowing thick and choking. The thieves staggered back, disoriented. "Run!" she yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. People scrambled. Isabel grabbed Tommy, pulling him against her body, shielding him with everything she had. But then, just as they were about to escape, a knife glinted under the dim lights, brandished by one of the thieves. "You'll pay for that," he snarled, and in that moment, everything shattered. Isabel's world tilted. She heard a scream. It wasn't just the chaos, but a recognizable voice, one that ripped her heart apart. It was Marcus. The knife caught him right in the side. He fell, eyes wide with shock, pain hitting him like a storm. "Marcus!" Isabel screamed, feeling her heart tear. Rodrigo was beside her now, his face a mask of horror. "We need to go," he shouted, panic driving him. But Isabel felt the ground slip from beneath her. The chaos enveloped them again, the smoke thickening, screams erupting around. "Mom!" Tommy cried, his little voice breaking, pulling her back to reality. And then it hit her like a lightning bolt. Annie wasn't just here by coincidence. The connection twisted back. The secrets, the family ties, everything she thought she knew was suddenly in question. "Annie," Isabel gasped, breathless. "What did you do?" Annie's eyes locked with hers. A shadow of tragedy flickered behind them. "It's time for you to know the truth," she whispered, desperation threading through the chaos. Isabel's heart raced. What truth? What was about to break? As the walls closed in, she grasped Tommy tighter, feeling the weight of everything collapsing. And then the world around them erupted, the air crackling with danger. Spanish lullabies and dark family ties mingled, as whispers of betrayal and revelation swirled in the smoky haze. "Isabel, come on," Rodrigo urged, yanking her arm. "Wait!" she shouted back, but the night was spinning too fast, the chasm of secrets gaping wide. What lay ahead was a treacherous path, one that could change everything they thought they knew about them, about family. Could she trust Annie? Or had the true nightmare only just begun? The world exploded into chaos, and Isabel's heart thundered. She clenched her fists, breathless in the swirl of panic. She glanced at Marcus, who was wide-eyed, still standing beside her. "What does this mean?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice, every second stretching out painfully. "What did you do?" she whispered to Annie. But her thoughts splintered when a loud crash echoed through the store. The masked thieves, startled by Annie's smoke bomb, turned their attention to her, their faces twisted in anger and confusion. "Get her!" one of them shouted, rushing toward Annie, who stood her ground, fierce and resolute. The air was thick with fear, and Isabel felt every muscle in her body tighten. "Tommy!" she screamed, spotting her son crouched behind a shelf, fear evident in his wide eyes. She had to reach him. She pushed forward, only to feel Marcus grip her arm tighter. "Wait! You can't just... Psh!" But his voice fell away as Annie lunged at the nearest thief, fists flying. The scene transformed into chaotic wrestling. Smoke filled the air, swirling around them like a sinister fog. Then, out of nowhere, a loud bang echoed like thunder. Everything froze. The gun had gone off, not from the thieves, but from another direction entirely. It rang through the store with a terrifying clarity that silenced the chaos. Isabel's breath hitched, then caught in her throat. Blood splattered against the wall behind Annie. Time paused, stretching painfully as her heart dropped into her stomach. Marcus stood frozen, eyes wide, disbelief coursing through him. "Annie!" she screamed. And in an instant, she realized it wasn't just blood. It was on Marcus. He staggered backward, his face contorting in shock, hand clutching his side. A look so raw, so filled with agony, that it pierced through the panic all around them. "What did you do?" Isabel gasped, staring at Annie as reality twisted, the truth unraveling. "It wasn't me, I swear!" Annie cried, horror painted across her face. The knife wound hadn't come from a thief. It shattered everything she thought she knew about the night, about her family. "It was an accident," Annie pleaded, tears streaming down her face. The thieves hesitated, the situation spiraling. They exchanged bewildered glances, the atmosphere charged suddenly by an unwelcome truth. But Isabel didn't know who to blame, who to trust. The sirens wailed outside, louder now, a merciless reminder of the crushing reality closing in. She tore her gaze from Marcus and rushed toward him, panic igniting her movements. "Marcus, no! Hold on!" But the sight of the blood, the panic on his face, it sent her spiraling into a darkness she couldn't comprehend. "I told you to listen! Mom!" he choked out, the words tumbling painfully through clenched teeth. "Everything is connected. You need to understand before it's too late." Suddenly, the first thief lunged at Annie, rage evident. It ignited a second wave of panic. Isabel glanced back to see Rodrigo moving into action, fists clenching, eyes narrowed, ready to defend her. But all Isabel could focus on was Marcus, crumpling against the shelf, pain radiating around them. "Stop!" she spoke through gritted teeth, her world narrowing to him. The near lifeless gaze he just locked with hers. "You have to stay awake!" Then chaos erupted again. The sound of shouts blended into an indistinct roar, and Isabel felt the ground beneath her shift dangerously. The air thickened with the scent of fear, her heart racing. How had it spiraled so far? Annie had never intended for this. Marcus's body was losing strength, and the truth hung in the balance, hidden among the screams and running bodies. "Tommy!" Isabel screamed, her heart tearing. She couldn't lose him. But another gunshot rang out, sharper than before, resounding with finality. A figure stood at the entrance, a silhouette she had missed amidst the chaos. A flicker of recognition pierced through her. It was her mother! "Mom?" Isabel whispered, confusion trailing behind her. "What are you doing here?" But her mother merely stepped forward, eyes fixed fiercely on the room. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. I didn't want this. I had to protect you, all of you." A collective gasp rippled through the room. "I should have told you. The truth was always bigger than we thought." The world turned upside down with that single statement. Isabel's breath hitched once more, realization slamming into her like a tidal wave. The secrets connected, twisting in a painful knot, threatening to pull them all under. In one heart-stopping moment, she could feel the past crash back in, all the lies starting to unravel. Isabel's life was standing at the precipice. The truth about her family, her love, her son, all tangled within that shared web of deception. As the smoke shifted and shadows danced, Isabel stood there, stunned, realizing the real nightmare was only beginning. Isabel stood frozen, her heart racing as her mother's figure wove through the smoke. The weight of lost years pressing down on her. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. I didn't want this." "What do you mean?" Isabel's voice cracked, confusion and anger mixing into a storm inside her. "You didn't want what? What truth?" Her mother staggered a step closer, eyes wild and glimmering, the courage clashing with fear. "The truth about our family, about your heritage?" "Heritage?" Isabel spat, disbelief flooding her. "What does that even mean right now?" But before her mother could answer, a loud crash erupted from the back of the store, followed by frantic voices. Thieves were scrambling. The panic surged like a tide, pushing everyone toward the exits. She gripped Tommy's hand tighter, ready to dash, but her eyes were glued to her mother. "Isabel!" Marcus gasped, breath hitching with pain as he pressed against the shelf, blood staining his shirt. "You must understand. They've been looking for you." He winced, and Isabel felt something break inside her. Before she could even voice her confusion and fear, a sharp bang shattered the moment again. A gun fired. The air filled with electric tension, and everyone's eyes shot towards the entrance. A woman, fierce and regal, stepped through the smoke, completely unfazed by the chaos. Isabel's breath seized. It was Lydia, the family lawyer. "What is she doing here?" whispered Marcus, confusion clouding his expression. "Enough!" Lydia yelled, cutting through the noise. "Everyone, listen. This is bigger than you think. The Miller family, you've been living a lie." The statement slammed into Isabel like a wall, freezing her on the spot. "What do you mean?" Isabel stammered, the words getting stuck in her throat. Lydia took a deep breath, her composure faltering slightly. "Your mother isn't just hiding from the past," she said breathlessly. "She's been hiding from the truth of who you really are. Isabel, you're not just anyone. You're—" The room was buzzing with whispers now. Every strand of tension pulled tighter. Isabel's mind raced. What did she just hear? "Lydia!" her mother shouted, panic creeping into her voice. "Enough!" Lydia retorted, unyielding. "You'll only make it worse for them. Worse!" Isabel echoed, the lump in her throat growing. "What could be worse than this?" "I'm sorry, Isabel," her mother whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "The family bloodline runs through you. You were the last descendant of a powerful family that's been shunned for years. The Millers have hunted you, believing you hold the key to everything they desire. And now they're coming for you." Gasps erupted around them. Gasps that mingled with fear as the masked thieves bickered amongst themselves. "What?" Isabel shouted, disbelief washing over her. "How could you keep this from me?" But the moment hung heavy, thick as the smoke swirling around them, and a drumming pulse filled her ears. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, the lights flickered, then went out completely. Panic spread as darkness enveloped them. The sounds of chaos warped into a jumble of screams and cries. "Stay close!" Rodrigo shouted, grabbing Isabel's arm. But in the shadows, a sharp clamp of cold metal pressed against her side. A thief had slipped closer, eyes glinting in the dark. In a heartbeat, everything shifted. "Get down!" he shouted, lunging at them. The world exploded into a cacophony of noise, and Isabel felt the air ignite with frenzy. She barely had time to react as everything shifted, and just like that, As the lights flickered back to life, a flash of recognition hit her hard in the gut. The thief? It was Danny, her brother's childhood friend. Danny? Isabel felt her voice trembling. He looked back, panic mixed with something else. Something darker flickering in his eyes. "I didn't want this," he shouted. "I was forced. You have no idea what they know, what they want." Isabel's heart dropped again. "What do you mean?" She barely managed to ask, breathless and lightheaded. "Everything is connected, Isabel. You're not just a target, you're the key," he barked, urgency dripping from every word. "And if they find you, it will mean disaster for everyone you love." But before she could grasp the gravity of the revelation, the store's entrance burst open and a wave of armed men flooded in. The shifting tides of chaos lined everything in mortar and terror. In that moment, Isabel's entire world collapsed. Love, family, all kept in shadows, all fragile under the weight of secrets. And all at once, she knew. This was just the beginning. The truth uncoiled in front of her like a dark serpent, ready to strike. What had they unleashed? As the crowd roared and the masked men advanced, Isabel's heart pounded with the realization nothing would ever be the same again. The chaos engulfed them. Smoke crept in thick tendrils, blurring faces and merging fears. Isabel felt a knot tighten in her stomach, the air crackling with tension. Danny was there, eyes wild, and the masked men advanced. "Everyone back!" one yelled, the panic screaming through his voice. Isabel's pulse hammered in her ears. "We need to get out of here!" She grabs Tommy's hand, pulling him close. Her heart raced, but before they could move, the lights flickered, then clashed out once more, flowing them into darkness. Bodies jostled, fear echoing in the air. "Annie!" Marco shouted, desperation in his voice as the blood seeped down his side. But she was lost among the shadows. Then, without warning, a shriek pierced through the room. It was sharp, jagged, a sound of pure terror that pulled everyone into a state of panic. Even the thieves paused. "Who did that?" one of the masked men shouted, shifting as if expecting danger. Isabel narrowed her eyes, searching the shadows. But then they emerged, figures cloaked in darkness, moving with an eerie fluidity. Isabel gasped. It was a group of women she recognized, silent and poised, with faces like marble. "Get down!" shouted Lydia, her voice reverberating against the chaos. The group moved like a wave, sweeping through the aisles, and the masked men were caught off guard. But the sight pulled at Isabel's heart. "No!" she yelled. "Get back!" Then it happened. A flash of movement, and one of the masked men raised his weapon at the group of women. Isabel's chest constricted. The moment felt suspended in time. "Stop!" she screamed, instinct taking over. But it was too late. Bang! The shot rang out, echoing like thunder. But instead of chaos, calm fell momentarily over the crowd. The thief had been hit. He crumpled, collapsing into oblivion. Isabel's breath caught as she glanced to the side. The shadows shifted, and standing in the dark was her mother, gun in hand, trembling but resolute. "Mom?" Isabel whispered, disbelief crashing over her. Her mother's gaze was fierce but soft, filled with a desperation that threaded through years of distance. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. You have to listen. This is about more than just tonight." "What are you saying?" Isabel felt the ground beneath her shift as the truth bubbled, toxic and thick. How could you constuck? I'm not just your mother. Her voice cracked, I am part of something bigger. The bloodline, our family history. It's about legacy. You must understand. A bolt of shock coursed through Isabel. She felt dizzy. As Marco gasped beside her, Why didn't you tell me? His voice trembled, anger laced with confusion. But there was no time for anger. The group of women surged forward, fighting through the panic, and suddenly Isabel recognized them. They were part of her mother's old circle, connected to the family she barely acknowledged. Wait, Marco shouted. Who are they? What does this mean? Then another masked man shouted, drawing Isabel's attention again as he turned. Panic-stricken, his face lit by the fluorescent lights, it was someone she knew. Liam, a boy from her childhood. Liam, she barely managed to whisper, confusion mingling with disbelief. What are you doing? The realization crashed down like an avalanche. Isabel, His voice trembled, flashing with remorse. He didn't finish as another shot rang out, forcing everyone to duck. What is happening? Isabel's chest tightened, sadness and rage crashing against each other. And then it all unraveled in that moment. A connection they all shared, a secret that twisted deeper. The walls closed in around her. Liam took a step back, trembling. I didn't know the truth either. I thought I was just hunting a target. I didn't know it would come to this. With that, the air shifted. Isabel stepped forward, desperation filling her heart. What did you say? I was searching for the air, he choked out, voice heavy with emotion. But it was you all along. Isabel gasped, feeling the weight of his words press down. Anger and fear morphed into a terrifying uncertainty. All the threads that tied them together snapped taut. Stop, Isabel shouted, feeling the chaos around her unspool into something far more significant. She realized then, the game was more than survival. It was power, bloodlines, and ancient ties that linked them all in an unseen web. And suddenly, with the gunfire and exposed secrets, she understood that everything she thought she knew was only the surface. The room was spiraling into a dark place, the truth hanging heavy in the air. What would that mean for them? As she processed the revelation, darkness enveloped them again. The air thickened with unsaid words, and the stakes rose higher than ever before. And still, Isabel stood there, caught between shark and the vast unknown. What else was unfolding? What lay waiting in the shadows? The answers beckoned, but the path was obscured, lurking just out of reach. The room closed in on Isabel, a tight ball of fear tightening in her chest. Everyone was on edge, breaths short and frantic. The masked men kept shifting, their eyes darting around in uncertainty. Isabel, her mother urged, voice tremulous but strong. You have to understand. The air felt electric, charged with unspoken truths as Isabel searched her mother's eyes, desperate for the answers she so desperately craved. What do you mean, Mom? What truth? Panic bubbled inside her, ready to spill over. Your lineage, it's not just about you being alive. It's about the power that flows through your blood, her mother insisted, eyes darting to the group, gauging the chaos around them. Power? Isabel scoffed, disbelief sharp in her voice. This is not the time for cryptic nonsense. But before her mother could respond, a thunderous crash echoed from the back. A shelf toppled with a deafening crash. Hovering in the shadows was a figure. "Let's make this a little more interesting," he cackled, the familiar voice slicing through the tension. "Gavin?" Isabel gasped, eyes widening as recognition hit her like a cold wave. It was her childhood friend, the one who always seemed a little too wild, a little too reckless. But the laughter in his voice felt foreign now, twisted. "Surprise!" he shouted, stepping into the flickering light. There was something in his eyes, a manic gleam, that sent chills down her spine. "I'm back to settle the score, Isabel!" "What do you want?" she spat, the confusion twisting her stomach. "You can't possibly think this is a good idea." "I've been watching," he said gleefully, his gaze sweeping the room like a predator. "You, your family, everything. And then I found out what you are, who you are. And guess what? It's time to play." The masked men hesitated, uncertainty flooding their expressions. Even they seemed to realize the situation was spiraling rapidly out of their control. "What do you mean, what I am?" Isabel took a step back, her mind racing. "You know nothing." "Oh, but I do," he said, a chilling smile creeping across his lips. "You're the key to their legacy, Isabel. Your family's been hiding it all along. The Millers aren't just wealthy. They have ties to secret societies that control everything. And you're their ticket to power, the last descendant who can unlock it." Isabel's heart pounded as murmuring spread through the crowd. Eyes widened. Glances exchanged. "That's ridiculous," she said, panic rising. "You're insane." "Am I?" Gavin's voice rose, almost thrilling in its intensity. "Or have you simply been too comfortable? Do you even know what you're capable of? What you're meant to be?" Isabel's breath caught. Images of her mother flooded her mind. Whispered warnings that always lingered. Truth wrapped in a fog. Her own lineage felt heavier now, like a stone lodged in her throat. "You're lying." "Am I?" Gavin laughed, almost mockingly. "Does this feel like a lie?" Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The glass storefront shattered, sending shards raining down like confetti. A flash of blue lights danced through the chaos. "Police!" came a shout. Voices shouting orders rushing through the entrance. It was in that moment, as sirens wailed and chaos erupted around them, that Gavin lunged forward, grabbing Isabel by the wrist. "We're not finished here." Everything unraveled then. Her mother shouted something, but it was lost amid the clamoring panic. Tommy screamed, clutching her leg, eyes wide with fear. Isabel felt her world spill over, her heart racing as Gavin pulled a small package from his pocket, tossing it onto the floor. The package exploded into a blinding flash, enveloping them all in searing light. Everything spiraled into chaos. There were yells, confusion, the sound of bodies colliding. Then the lights flickered, a complete blackout cascading over them all. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. In that moment of darkness, a murmur broke through the stillness, chilling Isabel to the bone. Now the real game begins. The words echoed, piercing through the dark, hinting at the layers of betrayal she never saw coming. And just like that, she realized nothing was as it seemed. Every connection, every choice, every ounce of trust hung by the faintest of threads, ready to snap. The world spun in darkness, heavy as a weight placed squarely on Isabel's chest. Every fragment of noise faded, blending into a heartbeat that thundered louder and louder in her ears. Now the real game begins. Gavin's words echoed, and truly, chaos erupted around them. The flash of smoke pulled them deeper into confusion, muffling voices, silencing screams. Isabel's heart raced. "Tommy!" she shouted, feeling desperate fingers grasp for him amidst the shadows. But just as the moment expanded with dread, a piercing shriek punctured the air. Chilling, gut-wrenching, it burst through Isabel's panic. "Mom, no!" Isabel froze at the sound. Maternal instinct overtook her perilous thoughts, and she turned toward her mother just in time to see her hit the ground. The brightness of a gun flashed, but then darkness crashed in again. "Annie!" Isabel screamed, rushing forward, but Gavin blocked her. He laughed, a wild, manic sound that felt warped. "You're running out of time, sweetheart. You can't stop this now." But Isabel's focus shifted. She pushed Gavin aside, desperate. She needed to get to her mom. "Stay with me, please." She could barely breathe. Annie lay still, her face pale against the dark floor, blood creeping from her side. Panic surged through Isabel, and she dropped to her knees. "Mom, please, stay with us." Gavin's laughter faded to a low growl. "It's too late for her, Isabel. This truth is ruthless." But then, from behind, came the sound of footsteps, heavy, determined footsteps, and hushed whispers. A group of uniformed officers stormed into the store, blue lights flickering like stars against the chaos. "Everyone stay down!" they shouted, guns drawn. This sudden light cut through the smoke like a dagger. For a moment, everything froze. Relief flashed inside Isabel like a spark, a flicker of hope amid despair. But just as quickly as it lit, it dimmed when a muffled voice erupted from the shadows. "Get away from her!" screamed a familiar voice. Isabel turned in time to see Marcus standing, his body shaking and blood-soaked. The fear in his eyes mirrored her own. "She's the only one who can stop this!" "What are you talking about?" Gavin sneered, raising his weapon towards Marcus. "You think you can protect her? This is bigger than you!" "No!" Marcus yelled, shaking, clutching the counter for support. "You don't understand!" Suddenly, the crowd erupted in chaos again. Officers barked commands, but the masked men began screaming too, their nerves fraying. Then, above them, the lights surged back to life, fully. But in that instant, an unexpected voice broke through the tumult, decisive and clear. "Everyone stop!" It was Isabel's father, standing just inside the entrance, a man she thought was lost to time. Her chest tightened painfully, confusion morphing into desperation. "Dad?" she choked out, disbelief twisting through her. "Is it really you?" He stepped forward, eyes locking on her with a fierce determination. "I'm here to finish this." Murmurs spread through the crowd like wildfire. Gavin's expression flickered with doubt, a shadow of uncertainty crossing his face. You're supposed to be out of the picture." "You don't know anything," her father replied, a steady calmness in the storm. "What you thought was a game was real." Isabel gaped at him, feeling everything warp around her. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Then came the revelation that silenced everyone. The bloodline doesn't just end here. I'm part of it too, and it's time for you to know that you are not just the key. You're the curse meant to unleash everything. Shock rippled through the room, eyes widening as the weight of the words sank in. Isabel felt the floor slip beneath her as everything shifted. This game was more profound than she ever imagined, and she was at the center, tangled in threads of legacy she didn't understand. Her father stepped closer, but the chaos spinning around them halted with breath held tight. Faces turned, whispers of horror rising. "You were never meant to know this, Isabel. It was meant to protect you. But it's here now, and only you can bring it to light." As the reality fell over her like a shroud, Isabel's heart raced. The secrets, lies, and dark past now tangled together into an inescapable fate. Doubt clutched at her throat. What was she really capable of? What did it mean for them all? She steadied herself, but knew that as the future loomed, everything she thought she knew had just crumbled. Isabel staggered back, trying to process the whirlwind of words from her father. The chaos around them faded into a muffled background noise, and all she could focus on was the revelation that had just crashed over her. "Why didn't you tell me? All those years!" Her voice trembled, burdened with years of unanswered questions and suppressed feelings. "You kept this from me, from all of us!" Her father's face hardened. "I did it to protect you, Isabel. There are forces at work here that you can't begin to understand." But before she could reply, a thick silence enveloped them, punctured by the erratic noise of the masked men, who seemed more rattled than they had a moment ago. They shifted uneasily, glancing at each other, uncertainty weaving through their ranks as officer uniforms burst onto the scene. "Put the weapons down!" an officer commanded, voice booming, echoing through the mayhem. The thieves hesitated, eyes darting back and forth, tentatively lowering their guns. Not a chance. Gavin screeched. They're too late, but Isabel seized the opportunity. "Get Tommy to safety," she yelled over the din, feeling the panic rise in her throat. Rodrigo nodded, taking Tommy's small hand, guiding him through the dispersing crowd of shoppers. "Come on, sweetheart," he said, looking back one last time, worry etched across his face. "We'll be back, I promise." Isabel turned to her mother, who still lay on the ground, blood trickling down her side. "Mom, hold on," she cried out, sinking to her knees beside her. Tears burned in her eyes as she pressed her hands against the wound, desperately wishing for some way to remove a lifetime of lies and pain. "You need to stay with us." Annie's breath came in shallow gasps, her eyes revealing the depths of her struggle. "Isabel, you have to know." But before she could finish, Gavin caught her arm, pulling her back. "No one is leaving." He was frantic as the reality of the situation crashed over him. The police were closing in. Fear and desperation mingled wickedly in his eyes. The atmosphere shifted, heavy with anticipation. Just then, Isabel felt her heart surge with determination. "I won't let you do this!" she shouted, pushing away Gavin's grip, her gaze never faltering from her mother. And in that moment, a flicker of light ignited inside Isabel. "Everyone," she called out, her voice rising above the chaos. "You've been chasing the wrong legacy. This isn't how it ends." The officers took that moment of hesitation to swarm in, bravery flickering in their eyes. "Hands up, all of you," they yelled, taking control of the scene. With a surge of strength, Isabel locked eyes with her father. "Help everyone see the truth. Together, we can end this nightmare." "What are you talking about?" he shouted, still unsure. But she could see the uncertainty in his eyes dissipate as her words took hold. Nothing can stay hidden. If we stand together against this cycle of violence, we can change everything. She turned to face the thieves, her heart racing. This has to stop now. The charged silence snapped. Gavin let out a furious shout, raising his weapon again. But it was too late. The officers lunged forward, quickly overpowering him, taking control. Isabel's heart pounded in her chest as the realization of what just happened sank in. They were winning. Real change was happening. And suddenly, she felt lighter. As the officers guided the thieves away, Isabel knelt by her mother, feeling the warmth of her hand as she held it tight. "Stay with me, please," she pleaded, tears spilling. "Isabel," Annie whispered, her voice barely audible, "you're stronger than you think. You carry this legacy, but you write your own story." Isabel fought through the tears, squeezing her mother's hand. "I will, I promise." As the chaos finally began to fade, each face reflected hope in the thin light. Uncertainty lingered, but they were ready for the next chapter, whatever it might hold. Isabel stood wrapping her arms around her mother, heart swelling with bittersweet relief. Friends, family, they were all there, ready to chart a new course. A legacy transformed, filled with fresh possibilities. But deep down, she knew one truth. The real story was only just beginning. And now, if you've joined me on this wild journey, you need to subscribe immediately. This is the moment to show your support for the channel so you don't miss out on the upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to boost the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And please, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Don't wait 1 second!